For taking time out of your busy schedules to join the session. Northwestern Melbourne is excited to present on managing challenging behaviour and importance of self-care in general practice. My name is Claire and I'm part of the workforce development team here at the PHN and will be facilitating the session today. Before I begin, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. The Northwestern Melbourne Primary Health Network would like to acknowledge the peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today. We recognise their contributing connection to the land, waters, culture, and would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. If we could go to the next slide, Katrina. Thank you. And then I'll go further to the housekeeping. Please remain on mute for the duration of the session and when the speakers are presenting. If you have any questions, please use the chat box. As this is a short session, we may not be able to get to all the questions. Please note that the session is recorded and the questions and chat will be kept anonymous for your privacy. Lastly, please ensure the name in the Zoom meeting is correct, or if it is your practice name and you have multiple people viewing from the one screen, if you could send a message to NWMPHN education through Zoom, just a direct message, or you can email education@northwesternmelbournephn.org.au, which I'll pop in the chat as well. And that's just to ensure that we can mark who's attended today and give certificates out to everyone viewing. Now I'm going to launch a poll just to do a bit of an icebreaker for all the attendees here today. And it's just a bit about abuse that you may have faced in the past 12 months, and you are most welcome to respond. But if you do not wish to, you can leave it blank and it will be removed in a couple of minutes. I'll hand over to our communication advisor, Andrew, to update on some of our comms activity.
Sorry about that. I'm in communication, so I couldn't find the unmute button, of course. Thank you for coming today, and thank you, Claire, for handing over. I'm Andrew Masterson. I'm the communications advisor here at the PHN. And one of the things in the communications area that we want to look at is to try and get some sense, some soundings regarding the frequency of threatening or abusive behaviour that GPs and others in healthcare and others in primary healthcare are subjected to. And secondarily to that, how much of that is related in any way to the pandemic, either conspiracy theories or notions of vaccine aggression or vaccine avoidance. And we have the poll up at the moment, but please note also at the bottom of this slide, there's an invitation to share instances of abusive behaviour in more detail privately by emailing me at andrew.masterson@nwmphn.org.au. And what you might want to do there, if you care to share things, first of all, may I say it is strictly confidential at this point. We are after perhaps some examples of aggressive behaviour that you may have had either in your workplace or associated with your workspace, things such as weird emails from conspiracy theorists or people putting stickers all over your building. We have had reports of that around Australia, and that sort of thing. You can tell us about that either in strictly factual terms, or if you want to wax a bit more lyrical about that and tell us about how that makes you feel or the impact it has on your staff or your customers, on patients rather, we would be fascinated to hear that as well, because the emotional and social impact of this is extremely important. Now, what might we use this information for? Well, I wonder if we could have the next slide up, or do we wait until we've got the poll out of the way? There it is. We might use this for a number of things, but I would point out that we are not going to use anything that you tell us until we have your explicit written permission to do so in the form that we might want to do it. So we might want to perhaps run up a story based on multiple experiences for our own website, or we might want to run up a story for a healthcare worker focused publication, something like the Health Advocate perhaps, or an RACGP publication, something like that. Or we may combine things into a media release or a pitch document to present to a trusted journalist, which does kind of rule the Herald Sun out, but a trusted journalist somewhere, Norman Swan perhaps, who might want to do a broader story on this kind of impact within primary care, or we may want to adapt things for our social media posts. We've recently been doing things around healthcare workers' experiences within vaccination clinics or within contact tracing, standalone use.
Oh, Andrew, it seems like you're cutting out a little bit.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Maybe that's better. Oh, my internet connection is unstable, so I will stop now. Because I'm actually in the country. We'd just love to hear from you, and I will just reaffirm that everything you send to us is confidential. If we want to use it for anything, we will contact you and ask for your explicit permission to do so, which you are, of course, always welcome to decline. I'll pass you back now.
Thank you, Andrew. If you do have any other questions, you can either email Andrew or the education inbox as well, and we'll be able to answer that. So I'm just going to end the poll now. If you do wish to respond and you didn't get a chance to, again, you can email either of us and we'll take your responses. So now I would like to hand over to both our speakers for today. We've got a very exciting lineup for you. We have Katrina Otto, who is one of the most experienced digital health and medical software trainers in Australia. She has been working at a variety of practices over the past 30 years, has qualifications in adult education, business and welfare, and works across Australia in practice management consultant. Thanks, Katrina, for joining us. Who I'd like to pass over to you next is Sally, who is also a practice manager, but is in our Northwestern Melbourne region and who works for oral health and medical services at North Richmond. She's worked as a healthcare manager for 15 years and has led a diverse range of projects, including the COVID vaccine rollout, which I'm sure many of you are involved in similar work. So I'd like to hand over to Sally to start the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Claire, and thanks to the NWMPHN for the opportunity to participate in this really important education session, and I'm really thrilled to be co-presenting with Katrina today. If we can just, do you want to go through the learning objectives, Claire, or can we pop straight through? That's great. As Claire said, I'm the practice manager for oral health and medical services here at North Richmond Community Health Centre. We are an integrated medical practice at a multidisciplinary facility, so we have the benefits of a suite of services around us. But we are very much on the journey, on this COVID journey with all our colleagues in other practices, and certainly experiencing the challenging behaviours that we know of ever present at the moment out there in our community and in the healthcare sector. The first slide that I've popped up today is just a snapshot of some of the everyday questions, queries, feedback that we've had from clients, both on an ongoing basis, but also in most recent times during the pandemic. Just listening to Andrew talk about those examples of aggressive or challenging behaviour, one of the quotes on that slide is one that we had most recently, which was, "I saw your nurse remove her mask and that is absolutely unacceptable behaviour." The context around that is that a nurse went into a side room to remove her mask to have a drink of water, and this particular client who put in a complaint ran at her to the door to aggressively intervene with her removing her mask, and then felt it was appropriate to complain about her behaviour at that point in time. The distress that it caused that nurse was significant, and she's a nurse with 30 years experience in the health sector. And they're the sorts of examples that we're seeing more and more often, as well as the increasing demanding behaviour around, I need to see a doctor and I need to see them now. The very, very extended conversations with clients around why they couldn't at one point in time have a particular type of vaccine, what they could do to try and get the vaccine of their choice, why it was unfair, why our receptionists were the ones effectively playing God with the decisions around this. It's been an exhausting time for all, but that particular incident with the nurse was a really extreme example of the sorts of behaviours that we're seeing. Also listening to Andrew talk about damage to buildings, we've had our COVID vaccination signs damaged with anti-vax messages, more so in recent weeks. So we know that there's a lot going on, and the impact that these challenging behaviours have on our teams, our clinical and non-clinical teams, is really significant. So we know that there's the challenging behaviours that we deal with day to day and on a routine basis that we've been working on for years. And then there's the extreme behaviours that we're seeing as people's anxiety levels escalate, and the education piece isn't out there for people through the pandemic. And alongside this, we've got our staff who are living with their own concerns, questions, challenges, and anxieties and experiences around this. And their buckets are empty for them to be able to navigate not their own personal experiences, and that of our clients is a particular challenge. We refer to it here in North Richmond as we live our life in a permanent COVID lens in healthcare at the moment, and it's a very, very challenging environment for our staff. Thanks, Katrina. So in terms of the types of challenging behaviours, I was reflecting on this with my teams in preparation for this webinar, and every word that we came up with seemed to be given with a D. So the challenging behaviours we see from clients, they're demanding. There's desperation there from clients in terms of their own well-being and their need to get a vaccine, particularly when they've put obligations around certain workforces to have a vaccine by a certain date, and people haven't been on that journey, and then there's a desperation there. It's also a desperation to get the healthcare that they need and that they're used to. There's the disrespectful behaviour that's born out of people who are just having a bad day and cranky, or it's born out of a real genuine anxiety for what they're experiencing at the moment. There's the dangerous behaviour, like we saw with our nurse, where people get physically aggressive or incredibly intimidating. There's distressing behaviour, where people ring up and they've got a family member that's struggling with a health issue, or they're experiencing COVID, or their mental health's deteriorating. And we've got staff members who are dealing with clients ringing up, talking about suicide and self-harm. Then there's the draining behaviour, where it doesn't matter how many times you answer the question or how many times you change your message, the conversation just continues, and it becomes very difficult to shut it down. And 20 minutes later, you're still on the phone, going round in the same circle. That's exhausting. So there's all these types of behaviour that we're dealing with at the moment. As I said, they're not ones that we haven't dealt with before, but they're certainly magnified and intensified at this point in time. Katrina, next one, please.
It's slow.
I know how it feels. So this little diagram for me was just about the impact of these challenging behaviours on our staff and the workforce. I mean, there's that immediate burnout and exhaustion, and then the impact that has on staff's emotional and physical well-being and welfare. And then from that, there's an increase in sick leave, which has an impact on the broader staff group as they come together to support each other when we've got staff absences. And then your staff retention rates are impacted, and then you need to recruit, and then recruitment is challenging, and the burnout cycle just starts all over again. That's certainly an experience that's been very real for us. We talk about it regularly and we reflect on it a lot, and we talk a lot about being kind to ourselves. And as we're dealing with this cycle, what are the things that we're not going to do to enable us to continue to get through things at this point in time? The next slide, thanks Katrina, that I'm going to share is just some of the things that we've done at North Richmond to help us deal with these challenging behaviours and their impacts. I don't pretend that we've got a solution. We haven't. We try, we fail, we go back, we review, we try again. But these are just some of the things that we've put in place, and we're by no means perfect in that. Our complaints procedure, we've done a lot of work on that over recent times to make sure that we've got a really robust feedback loop for clients to try and diffuse issues before they escalate. And within that, making sure we've got a really clear escalation channel for those staff that are at the front line, that when they're dealing it, they know where to go to next when it gets to a point that they can no longer deal with it, to try and remove some of that burden and not feel that they have to be the one responsible for seeing it through to the end. We've recently done a lot of work on OVA, and I'm sure we're not alone. We're putting together our OVA action plan at the moment, so we can set some really clear expectations for our clients and some clear boundaries. I think we know what we expect and what we want as healthcare professionals, but I think making sure we've communicated that really clearly with our clients is also a really important thing to do as well, and making sure that we follow through. Not only does that send a clear message to the clients themselves, but it shows staff that we're supporting them. Emergency response systems, much as it pains me to have to talk about this, we've again done a lot of work on our emergency response systems, on security, on managing emergency codes, to make sure that our staff know that at the push of a button, if things get too much, that there's a team that will come and support them. And it's not just a team, as I said, we've got the luxury of being part of a multidisciplinary organisation, but not just the medical services team itself, but a team from the organisation that can come and lend that support when things get to a dangerous point. And procedures for suspending clients due to challenging behaviour. This is something we agonised on for a long time, but we have now got a process in place that clearly sets out what we do in the event that we no longer believe that having that client as part of our service is safe. And it includes what we do for them to support that care, but most importantly, what we do for our staff. So they're the systems approaches that we've had for a while, and we've certainly done a lot of work on recently. For our people, who are our most important, it's our communications that we focus on. So our team meetings, our weekly huddles, daily huddles if necessary, if things are, we're at a particularly challenging or ever-changing time, and making sure that those communication channels are really nimble and really responsive. An EAP, so an employee assistance program. We're lucky enough to have an employee assistance program at North Richmond, and we've seen a really significant uptake in that over the past 18 months. We're also investing in becoming a mentally healthy workplace. So we're training our staff in mental health first aid. Some of that is very much about supporting our clients and those difficult conversations, but also about supporting each other. So having staff who are trained and have the right skills and capacity to be able to go, you know what, Sally, you don't seem like you're traveling so well at the moment. Is there anything I can help you with? A wellbeing program. So we do yoga and Pilates on a almost daily basis for our staff, and we allow staff to take those classes during their work time, providing we can cover their role at that point. We don't expect it to be done on a lunch break or after hours. We provide it as a mental health break during the day, and we really encourage it. I think reward and recognition is really important at the moment, where we've just gifted our staff an additional 2 days leave for this year. We know that people are struggling to get that break, particularly in Victoria. Nobody really wants to use their leave to go nowhere. It doesn't seem like a particularly appealing use of all that hard-earned leave that you've put in. So we've gifted them 2 days leave with the hope that they will take that time and take time out for themselves. Investing in additional resources, I know that's not always easy, but if your business has the capacity to bring in some additional resources on a short-term basis, we found that that's helpful. It has its own stresses in bringing people up to speed, but it can be a real help in just letting people take some time out. And training staff in de-escalation and conflict resolution. All our staff are trained and have refresher training on de-escalation and conflict resolution, just to support them in dealing with those challenging conversations. And then just the day-to-day support. So staying connected, being present and listening. It's so hard at the moment. You might get 10 minutes where you feel like you can have a proper conversation with people. I'm trying really hard to put that in my diary at the moment so that I know that I've got time where I can make myself available. It's, again, not perfect and it doesn't always work, but I know that a 5-minute conversation can make a real difference to people. Being flexible where your business allows. So work from home arrangements, we found, give people that break from the front line that they need. And if we can do it and still balance service delivery, we're encouraging that. We eat a lot of cake. We have regular deliveries of COVID safe junk food to our service, be it cupcakes and just a 5-minute break where everybody can take a socially distanced step back and eat a piece of cake makes the world of difference on a daily basis for us at the moment. And laughing, finding something to laugh about. There has to be something. We will find it. Even if it's a news release that means we're going to get a barrage of phone calls within the next 24 hours, we'll try and find something positive to laugh about with that. And prioritising balance and well-being, which I appreciate is so much more easily said than done at this point in time. I'm terrible at it. It's an absolute, effort for me on a daily basis to go, I need to go for that walk at lunchtime. I need to have that coffee break. But it's just, a daily reminder to myself and to the staff that they need to take that time out for themselves. So that's just a bit of a snapshot of the things that we've been working on, that we've been putting in place day to day. This is a long game. It's not going to be something that we, that we see disappear overnight. Once we get over the craziness of vaccines, there'll be third doses, and we've already seen that coming. And once we get over the third doses, there'll be the impacts of people's mental health and catch-up care that we need to deal with. We just need to arm ourselves with the tools for playing that long game for the next at least 12 months to 2 years, I think. So thank you. That's it from me.
Brilliant. Sally, it sounds like you're doing the most incredible job. Amazing practice. I think where you'll note that Sally and I share so many commonalities in what we're experiencing, yet we're talking to you probably, from what I gather, from a large practice experience, and mine is a very small practice that I'm managing at the moment. So share with us also in the chat, right, what resonated with you the most then about what Sally just said. All of those aspects, I was going, I know, right? That's how it is. That's how it is for us too. So tell us, what resonated the most with you? What's your biggest challenge, and what's your biggest success at the moment in all of that? So what do you reckon, Sal? Was it the cake and the finding the humor in finding the light moments for you? They were the two that I heard you stress. You see a real difference when you use those?
Oh, it normalizes your day. It resets and brings some normality back from the craziness at the moment, I think. And oh, my light's just gone off. I just think it's really important to find those normal moments amongst what we're experiencing right now, and that's not always easy. But I'm, like you said, Katrina, I'm really keen to hear what other people are doing. We're just that word pivot we use all the time at the moment, and we're not only pivoting in terms of responding to COVID, but it's in terms of responding to the needs of our staff as well. So I'm super keen to learn what else is working for other people. Like you said, we're all on this journey together, and I'm sure there's a lot that we can learn from each other, as well as a lot of commonalities as well.
Well, in actual fact, for those who haven't met me before, I'm Katrina Otto from Train IT Medical, and I'm always saying when I'm presenting, that it's not me that has all the tips. I get them all from all you wonderful people, and I'm just a good sharer. So I thought, like Sally, I'd also compile a little list of things. And I put a picture here of, this is myself. I share the practice management role of O'Connell Street Clinic, which is in Sydney CBD, right in the middle of a hot zone. I decided I was most needed there in the pandemic. So, and with the most incredible practice manager, Michelle Horswood, who some of you may also have heard co-present with me, because we did the Prepare Your COVID Vaccine Clinic webinars. And if you didn't see those, please hit me up and I'll share them with you, because Michelle's tips are amazing. But I have a new profile photo. What do you think? This is me these days, getting constant tests done, because yes, we do live that life. This is also me again. The looks just not what it used to be. Unable to get to hairdressers, but this is the most amazing little team in O'Connell Street Clinic, and this is just a picture of us in the middle of a daily huddle. And I just compiled a little list very similar to what Sally was saying. I guess from Michelle and my perspective, the key things during this whole time has been, we do expect and prepare for challenging behaviour. Yesterday, I was like, right, 3rd doses, everyone. We're going to get all the calls. So we were like, okay, what is our protocol? What is the information that we're going to need on the phones? And then the team and I designed a dialogue. What are we going to say to people? Because we know and we expect people to be wanting to fight for those 3rd doses. So this is what we mean by expect and prepare, talk about it and throw a few jokes in there, have a few memes ready if you need, that makes light of what is really, when the phones are running off the hook from morning till night, and then people yell at you when you finally speak to them, it's not funny. So you have to make light where you can, and then establish those clear guidelines for managing that challenging behaviour. As Sally said, constantly supporting the team. We debrief in the morning and debrief at night. We have a shredder. People can write what drove them crazy that day, and they shred it, leave it at the door. Whatever tip you take to help us shake off that stress, to build and come back. But these daily huddles, when it's really tough, and I, as you can see, some of my team are very young. So being able to lead, Darcy's 18, lead with strength and positivity. And then because we all work different times and different days, writing up those changes, those decisions, those quality improvements, what are we trying? Did it work? Then that's going to be important to communicate with the rest of the team who may not have been there that day. So one of the team take turns, we just type up the daily huddle and the notes, the minute notes really. So this meets our QI as well. I love to tick off 2 things at once. And as you might notice, I was being really careful about sharing too much information, because you will get this presentation, but you'll notice there's a lot of animal pictures there. So with our team, animals play a big part in the feel good, lightheartedness. I love pandas. Anyone else love pandas? Pandas make me feel warm and fuzzy. This is Michelle's otters. Did you know otters hold hands when they sleep to save them each other from floating away? So it's about the team supporting each other. So this is just one of the little aspects that we use in the practice. I don't know has anyone ever seen this T-shirt before? I don't know whose it is, but I saw it online and I loved it. What do you do to build your team? And thank you so much for writing in the chat, and I'm going to have a read of those as soon as I can, and we'll compile these for you. This is one of mine. It's up to us. It's important, and I do teach a leading change course for practice managers, and it's about people will change when the risk of changing not changing becomes greater. And that's us, isn't it? So it's about a guiding coalition. We are saving Australia, aren't we? It's up to us. We're the vaccinators. We should be so proud of what we're achieving. We're doing a great job. And yes, there is cake. Common theme in all our practices from what I'm reading, coffee, cake and lollies. Yep. So there's the lollies and jelly beans. Too many jelly beans. And this is a what not to do. Yes, this is me at the end of the day. And yes, I am taking that photo out. So whatever helps you keep perspective with all that is going on at the moment, then whether it's animal pictures or jokes, then build that into your self-care repertoire. And what we want to talk about, I want to talk a minute about diffusing angry conversations, the reality of our challenges that we have. But I also want to get Sally's input into what self-care strategies can you build into your daily plan? Because as Sally said, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We have to stay strong. And we are doing incredible jobs. We're going to remember this at this time. This time won't last, but we're going to remember it forever. And we're going to be so proud of what we achieved in this time. And I tell my son, who's a student nurse, he'll have stories to tell his grandchildren. He was just doing his work placement on the COVID ward. So how are you feeling? Name it. If we name our emotions, it helps us manage them better. How's your team feeling? And how are your patients feeling? If we take a moment to acknowledge all that we have been through, then it's important to understand what's going on in our brains. Now, I did a whole webinar on this with a trauma expert. So if anyone would like to watch that, you can. This is Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain. But I just like to put it in now because I think it's really important, especially if you are leading a team, to understand that we are not working. We are working in our survival system. Okay, that fight, flight, freeze. Long-term stress. We are not acting in our usual manner. We won't react in our usual manner. So as much as we can say we need to be strong and we need to be resilient, we need to be real and say we're not, and our staff aren't going to be able to focus or concentrate or make decisions or problem solve as well as they usually can. So what do we need in ourselves? And what do we need to do for our staff to help them balance, as Sally said? So please go down that path, learn more if that will help, because I find understanding, empathy builds tolerance. Yeah.
Just Katrina, and you talk about that. One of the things we talk about at the moment is everybody has a story. Every single one of my staff is dealing with something outside of work that's then compounded by what they're experiencing in work. And the same goes for our clients. I think that empathy piece is really, really important. It's a good point. And taking that time to understand what's driving the behavior as well, or why people may be behaving in a challenging way, but also why they may not be resilient as well, or why they might be impacted in a particular way by a situation. I think that empathy piece is really important.
That Dan Siegel, that hand model of the brain, he talks about flipping the lid. People flip their lid and it doesn't take much. Right now, we're so in our survival mode, it takes very little for our patients to flip their lids. And we just have to say, no, I'm sorry, the doctor's not working that day, and they will flip out. And they will become irrational and abusive. And it's like, I can book you in on Monday. But whereas normally people wouldn't react like that. So to me, understanding and empathy is everything. It helps me cope with everybody's behavior. And sometimes I do have to overcompensate, and somebody will be reacting really badly, and I will go, oh my goodness, they must have, something seriously wrong with them. I feel sorry for them, because, no sane person would behave like this. Or and as Sally said, this is not just, of course, in COVID times. We've always had abusive patients, but, I've had patients who've abused me because I asked them for their mobile phone number. And I just think to myself, I let it go over my head, don't take it personally. And I go, wow, what must be going on in their life that they get that upset about being asked that? And how sad is that for them? So this is my coping mechanism over 30 years of working in health. Today is about you finding some tools and strategies that you can add to your repertoire and understanding why your staff might not be able to multitask like they normally can, or they keep losing. Hey, does anybody relate to that? Does anybody keep losing things or keep getting distracted? Can't stay on task? Constantly. Yeah, me too. I've got 2 things missing at any one time. Yes. So remember, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk really fast because we really want to get your interaction. I want to yarn with Sal too. So this is a presentation we'll give you. Now, I have put heaps and heaps of extra pictures and funny things in here so that you can flick through this later on. But just super quick, just be mindful when people are angry, it's not about usually what they're talking about. It's about their fear. They fear they're going to get COVID and die. They fear grandma's going to die. What is going on behind that anger? Take a moment to think about what it could be in order to build our empathy. When patients are behaving badly, how are you going to communicate with them what is and isn't okay? And this was a really nice example of a sign. I thought it was great. Putting it back on the patient. Your words matter. Your behaviours matter. Our patients and our teams matter. Breathe. Then come in. So it is just whatever you can do to remind people. But this importance of emotion right now, preparing your staff in the morning, preparing them, debriefing if they've been yelled at. This is really important. And I put a link in here to I don't know if you know, who knows Brene Brown? I don't know if you have watched much of Brene Brown, but she's amazing. And this video is really particularly on empathy. Understanding empathy is particularly helpful. Good activity for your team and you to the managers to do together. The other good thing for admin staff, I find leading your team is to give people dialogue. It's too hard to think at the moment. Just give me the words to say. Okay. Now, I did a webinar after the bushfires because everybody was in distress. All our patients were crying. So sentence starters, and this is the one that we made for now. Okay, I'd really like to help you. Could you speak a little more slowly? Okay, so calming down. Rather than saying no, I've got a couple of options for you. Sounds much nicer, doesn't it? We're still saying no. That must be so difficult for you. Deal with the emotion. Okay, let me see what I can do to help you. So we know full well they don't meet the criteria for a dose 3, but they're demanding a 3rd dose. Behind that demand and that anger is probably fear. We don't necessarily know. Let me see what I can do to help you. This is a great activity to do with the whole team. And then the way you are speaking right now is frightening to me. If you continue, I will need to hang up. Okay? And I'm hearing you're really frustrated and angry. I can't help you when you are swearing at me. I'm sorry. It is uncomfortable for me, I am going to need to hang up. So finding the words to say to diffuse this situation and let people know that you're a person too. So other ideas? Now I'll just keep these in here for you to look at, go through with your team. You know, as Sally said, really important to have that complaints. This is what they can then do. As the practice manager, you know, just saying their complaint to us again can really help them. And I often say it's just a broken record technique. Sometimes I'm just saying exactly what the staff said, but hearing that confirmed can help diffuse that situation, or it could make it worse. When things get worse, what do you think of my mug? So when things get worse, we go to humor, right? So those 5 key messages from me: address the emotions first, provide them with options. So you're helping, even if you can't meet their needs. Don't take it personally. See it going over your head, shake it off, shred it on a piece of paper when you leave. Do whatever you need to do. I just so now want to work with Sally so I can do yoga and meditation. Pilates, I so do. Look after yourself. So add your own yoga and meditation to your repertoire if that's what is going to be the thing that'll help you. And then look after each other. So I'll come back on. Let's talk about self-care. How are we going? We've got 15 minutes. And then if people can write in their chat, what we're looking for is your own. And if I could suggest right now in this webinar, get your piece of paper and write on it my self-care action plan. Okay. What are you going to add to your repertoire? If I can share mine with you, I've done numerous because I've been trying to look after myself, and please do not hold, and Sal said the same thing, do not hold us up like we have it all together. I was the one who ended up in hospital at the end of last year because I didn't look after myself. So this is why you'll always see me with a glass of water. Okay, so we're still, you know, we're leaving it, we're learning, we're trying. I added, and I want you all to share what you've added to, if you haven't already. I've added, I go for a walk, try and go most days, but I've added listening to a positive podcast on every walk. There's one I put in my links. It's called From Crappy to Happy. Highly recommend it. So what about you, Sal? What have you done for your personal?
I'm practicing being kind to myself is one of the things. Rather than always thinking I've got to the end of the day, what haven't I done? I get to the end of the day and I think, what have I done? What have I done? What have I achieved? What have we achieved? And I try and leave work thinking about that rather than the list of things I haven't, because one of the things we talk about a lot at the minute, and I mentioned it when I was speaking, is, you know, what don't we have to do right now? Like, you know, there are things that we have to do, but what don't we have to do? What can we let go? And I think once you give yourself permission to let that go, and you give your team permission to let that go, nothing catastrophic is going to happen if we don't do X, Y, and Z. We've got a busy day. We're 2 staff down. We're not going to do that today. It's fine. You can put yourself in a much more positive headspace, or I find I can. So yeah, I'm practicing being kind to myself and looking at what it is I have achieved in a day and what I haven't. And I've just seen Katrina in the chat pop up a bottle of wine, and we have had that conversation.
See, that was so last year, wasn't it, Sally? Now this year we have to say, no, this is not good for our health.
The water, I'm right there with you. But yeah, practicing being kind to myself and focusing on what we have achieved, not what we've not gotten to.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And as the, you know, QI queen here, celebrating small incremental improvements. That's what's all about, you know, set really small goals and celebrate. So taking a moment, I taking a moment to celebrate what you have achieved for yourself. I have to say, I'm going to add that to mine. I don't do that. I should. What I tend to do is I give myself permission to be okay. Well, this is the best I can do right now. And that's okay. You know, it is really challenging times. There's a lot going on. So that's okay. That's the best I can do right now. And that's okay.
But I like the podcasting. I think because it helps you refocus. And I'm loving some of the other things that are coming through in the chat, the baking, horse riding, taking the dog for a walk, that, you know, really emptying your head and focusing on something else completely different. Crappy to happy. I love that.
Because what happened, I don't know if, I'm sure you can relate to this. There is so much negativity coming at us all the time, and the media is overwhelming. And then a lot of us work with negative, what is it? You called it before, doomsayers. Live with people who are worriers. So this means that if everything coming in is negative, how can you have a brighter outlook yourself? And we need to look at the positives, because they're uncertain times, you know, and this won't last. So look to the positives, hope for the future, focus on what's good in life, because, you know, you can't predict what's going to happen. And but what people tend to do is predict what the worst that could happen, which is really unhelpful. So it usually does not happen, is my experience in life, what the worst people predict will happen. Now, this is from Fleur, another practice manager and long-term colleague of mine. She made herself a mind map. She shared in a previous webinar I did with her that she did experience burnout because she was looking after everybody else and not herself. So she made that little mind map and gave permission to share it, which I thought was great. Look at that. Tough times don't last, tough teams do. So bonding of the team has been something that I have enjoyed as a practice manager in these times. Plenty that you may not enjoy, but bonding of the team. Having said that, the focus is ensuring your team don't burn out as well as yourself. And this is a top 5. Okay, so I don't know if you guys do, we call it belly breathing or abdominal breathing. If you suffer from anxiety, abdominal breathing, go and do some Googling on it. It changed my life many, many years ago, probably about 10 years ago, abdominal breathing. Have a code word with your coworker. Ensure everyone has a break. Sally said this, we have morning tea breaks, we have lunch breaks for all the staff. It's not negotiable. Everybody has a break. Numerous breaks. Close the conversation if unhealthy and get out, go for a walk. Now, I've also just chucked a whole lot of good research stuff that I found in here for you. I've hidden a lot as well because I knew it more than we had time for, but I like this one. A lot of people talk about the physical, okay? So eating well, sleeping. Let's look at self-care as a broader picture. So emotional, social, spiritual. Okay, so if you look at it, lots to draw from, lots to add to your potential own improvement plan for your own self-care, right? So lots of ideas here, and combining humor. Now, this was from Carleen, wonderful Carleen, and I've said this before in other webinars I've done. Anyone done this? Bingo for your front desk team. So how many times are you asked the same thing? And then playing a little funny game of bingo. And then I found a self-care one, a self-care bingo as well. Okay, so lots of ideas. The no button was another one. How many times a day do you have to say no to people? How do you shake that off? It's very hard having to say no to people all the time. How can you reword it and turn that conversation around? How can you debrief when there would be no turning that around? It was always going to end in a negative way. What can you control and what can't you? And focusing on what you can. But thank you, Tennille. They started the bingo for reception.
Yeah.
It's been a great mood lifter.
Can I quickly share something somebody
Please.
said to me the other day? It was a girlfriend. We were just at the park with our kids and we were talking about the daily juggle at work and at home. And she said to me, you have to look at everything that you're juggling and decide which ball is plastic and which ball is glass. And the plastic ones are the ones you can drop and they won't break. And the glass ones are the ones that you have to hold on to. And they can change. You can change which is glass and which is plastic every day. And I sat there and I was just like, that is such a good visual for me.
It is.
Around what is it I need to do right now versus what is it I don't need to do. That plastic ball is not going to break if it drops, but this glass one needs to be held at the moment. And at the minute, my glass ones are my staff. They're the glass balls. The plastic ones are the minutes from that meeting last week that I didn't quite finish. But I need to send out, and they might just be rough enough is good enough, but that's fine because they do the job. They're a plastic ball. That was a really good visual for me.
That's helpful for me too. My plastic is the accreditation stuff. It keeps getting pushed over to the side. But the glass ball is the staff. I mean, I'm losing staff at the rate of knots, and they're really. I know they're getting, the rest of them are filling in and they're just getting so worn out, and they're already worn out. So it is a great visual. Thank you for that. I think that's really helpful because we can get focused on, the unimportant things at times because sometimes they're easier, right? Yeah. So what is in your control? And I just liked this one. Walking, nature, wildlife, good for my soul. I see that, feel that, do that. What's good for your soul? And then this is if I had my, and again, I'm being kind to myself and going, hey, doing the best I can at the moment. But in my ideal world, I'd make you all a beautiful one of these and give it to you before the webinar and you could write on it. So I didn't do that. Here it is. You could make one. What are you going to put on your self-care? Tiny, small things. It could be 1 minute a day. It could be stopping, standing, and breathing for 1 minute. What are you going to add to your self-care routine for today, for the next week? Keep it really simple. Oops. Now, if I was to say, I'll come back to that. If I was to say, Sally, if you have one message to leave everybody with, what would it be?
The one phrase I say 400 times a day at the moment, there is always a solution. It might not be pretty, it might not be what we would like, but given what we're dealing with, there is always a solution and we will find one together. I say it so often at the moment because we're so knee deep in everything that I think it's really easy to lose sight of the fact that that there is a solution. As I said, it might not be pretty, but it's what we've got and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. So Sally and I were talking and we both use mantras often. I loved Sally's, and I have been saying this mantra to myself often, numerous times a day. Hard times don't last, and they don't. We will get through this. Right now, they are hard times. Our sparks of joy that you can find to bring to your day will keep you going through this. Sharing with colleagues like this, with people who understand, with friends, will keep you going through this. So keep sharing, keep caring, and especially focus, and don't feel guilty about it, focus on your own self-care, because if you don't nurture yourself, then you can't nurture anybody else. Okay. Now, I just wanted to, I'm going to hand over to Claire again, but I wanted to let you know, some of you would already know from previous webinars and courses, but courses.trainitmedical.com.au is where I host all the recordings that we do. So Northwest Melbourne PHN has a webinar area in here and courses. So, and that's your specific code. Thank you, Claire. Look how fast you are. Just pop that in the chat for you. If you have any problems with accessing, just email me, katrina@trainitmedical.com.au, and I will be sharing not only, of course, the recording, but the PowerPoint that we've used in here. And when you access that, you'll also get a certificate and extra resources. And these are some of my favorite links that I sourced when I was putting together some of the webinars in relation to the pandemic times and dealing with challenging behaviours. So extra learning in these resources to sort of keep the education going. If you want to access any of the other webinars I've done in COVID times, please email, let me know, connect with me. I'm here to support you all. I want to thank you all for the incredible jobs you have been doing. It is a pleasure to be with you and build strength. I build strength from all of you every day. So there's the code again. Thank you. And I'll hand over to Claire now. And I just wanted to also say, I haven't had the pleasure of working with Sally before, but I will do everything I can to have the pleasure again very soon, because she's amazing. She's an amazing leader for you all, I believe, as well, to learn and be inspired from. So thank you, Sally. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina.
And thank you both from the PHN for your time and your knowledge that you've shared today. It has been really invaluable to myself and to all the attendees here today. Just looking through the chat, I've been inspired myself with a couple of the ideas that have come through. Sally, you'd mentioned, you know, putting time in your diary to talk to staff, investing in regular appointments from professional supervisor that came through, care packs if we don't want to keep the calories low during lockdown. But yeah, it's been amazing what has come out through the chat, and I'll collate some of the ideas and be able to share it with all the attendees here today. I've also popped in an evaluation survey if you do wish to respond to the session today, and furthermore a bit of information about the Train IT expression of interest that Katrina was mentioning. We do encourage to fill out that EOI before having access to the modules, and if you do have any questions, you can send an email to the education@nwmphn.org.au. Just quickly, because we're kind of wrapping up for time, there is some health pathways on, you know, clinician health and self-care and caring for medical professionals as well. You can quickly pop through the slides, and for people to, you know, encourage to read and to look up for health pathways in their own time as well. But yeah, that's a great resource to use in addition to all the ones that have been shared today. But yeah, thank you both again so much. It has been very invaluable, the ideas and the conversation, and very much appreciated from the PHN. But just wrapping up right on 1 o'clock. So yeah, thank you both, and everyone have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.